A mouse is released in the lab, running around its cage as it smells its food. Suddenly, an invisible force grabs and devours it. From the blood, we can make out the jaws of some animal. Sebastian, the protagonist of our story, is working on his computer on a chemical formula, running simulations that fail repeatedly. Later, he spies on his neighbor as she undresses, but she closes the window for her privacy. Moments later, an idea strikes him, and he returns to work on the formula, running another simulation. This time, the formula becomes stable, prompting him to call Linda to tell her about the solution he found. She can be seen watching a man sleeping in his bed. She tells him it is no longer his business what she does, hinting that they had a past relationship. Sebastian shows her that he managed to stabilize the formula, astonishing her with the fact that he solved the issue. Apparently, the formula was meant to reverse the invisibility condition of the animal we saw in the lab. Linda wakes up her current partner and lab colleague, Matt, to tell him that Sebastian had figured out how to stabilize the formula. She tells him that, to avoid suspicion, they should each arrive in their own cars. However, Matt is tired of hiding and asks Linda to tell Sebastian about their relationship that morning. Sebastian arrives at the lab, which is a heavily guarded facility. He scans his fingerprint to access the elevator and says the password. Inside the lab, the invisible animals can only be seen through thermal imaging. Matt plays with an orangutan and greets a female gorilla named Isabel, who is invisible. He puts on glasses to see her and calms her down, then decides to close her in. But she bites him and escapes. Honestly, I think the gorilla could have torn him to pieces, but let's keep going. Matt chases her through the lab, running until he crashes into Sebastian, saying that due to her being invisible for such a long time, her brain was affected, causing aggression. Sebastian responds that this is why they have tranquilizers, grabbing a tranquilizer gun and betting Matt $10 to see who hits her first. Matt fails, but Sebastian succeeds. Sarah enters and argues with Sebastian, saying that even though he solved the formula, it could negatively impact Isabel, the gorilla. She believes it is unethical, but he thinks it will save them time. Linda joins them, reminding Sebastian that he hired Sarah because she is the best veterinarian in the country. Later, everyone is prepared to administer the serum. Sebastian reviews his team and mentions that now he has the power of a god because he discovered invisibility. It seems the team thinks what he is about to do is reckless. Sarah looks for a vein in Isabel's arm, and when she finds it, Sebastian takes the syringe from Matt, saying the honor is his. He injects the serum, and the serum visibly moves through her veins and body. Her heartbeat speeds up, and her body begins to become visible. They are pleased it works, but suddenly her condition deteriorates, and she suffers a cardiac arrest. Isabel's heart stopped, so Linda used the defibrillator multiple times until her heart started beating again. Once Isabel began to stabilize and her body became visible, Sebastian told Sarah she should bring the gorilla for a live dissection on Monday. But Sarah, who opposed this, argued with Sebastian until Matt intervened and told Sarah that Sebastian was joking. Linda also stepped in, suggesting that it would be better if they all went out to celebrate, so they went to a restaurant. There, Sebastian and Linda talked, and Sebastian attempted to kiss her, but she no longer felt anything for him. Afterward, they returned to the lab to check on Isabel, where there was also an invisible dog that Sebastian petted, wondering what the dog must be feeling in such a state. Sometime later, Sebastian presented his discoveries to a Pentagon committee. Dr. Kramer asked him how they managed to solve the reversion problem, and Sebastian lied, saying they had not solved it yet, which surprised Linda and Matt. Dr. Kramer stated that they needed to see results soon, and if they couldn't achieve that, he would find someone else to replace them. Both Linda and Matt were angry at Sebastian, but he explained that if he had told them about solving the reversion, the Pentagon would have taken over their entire project. His next idea was to conduct human trials without informing their superiors, and he managed to convince his colleagues to accept this course of action. Later, they informed the team about the human trials, and none of them were keen on the idea. However, Sebastian volunteered himself to be the test subject. He explained that he would remain invisible for 3 days, and then they would perform the reversal procedure to bring him back to his normal state. On the day of the procedure, Sebastian seemed to be in a good mood, even cracking a joke to his colleagues. They prepared him for the procedure and examined him, noting that he was in good condition despite a slight increase in blood pressure due to stress. They heated the serum, and Sebastian decided to inject himself, stating that if anything went wrong, he would be the only one to blame. He injected the serum, and everything seemed normal at first. But suddenly he felt a sting and started convulsing on the bed, mentioning that the pain was severe. His body began transforming, becoming invisible, starting with the muscles, then the organs and bones, until he appeared as just a skeleton, and eventually no one could see him. Everyone said Sebastian was okay, though he might be in shock from the trauma. After 17 hours, Sebastian woke up, screaming in pain and asking Linda and Matt to turn off the lights because he couldn't close his eyes due to the transparency of his eyelids. Sebastian got up and approached the mirror. Then the three moved to the common area of the lab, and he immediately began bothering everyone. Matt and Linda brought him back to his room and activated the surveillance monitor, while Sarah also watched the cameras. She was supposed to take the first watch, followed by Carter. Sarah dozed off during her shift, but Sebastian managed to enter where she was and unbutton her shirt, though she woke up and found him there. She watched the screens, but as soon as she turned away, Sebastian returned to bed. The next day she told Linda what had happened, though she wasn't sure if it had really happened. Linda also didn't know what to do, and Matt wanted to talk to him, but they couldn't figure out anything. Sarah began removing the electrodes, but the conversation turned uncomfortable. Frank and Janice entered the lab, then split up as Janice headed to the bathroom, feeling as though she was being watched, as if someone was spying on her. She decided to put on thermal goggles before using the restroom. The team discussed Sebastian and what might happen now that he was invisible. Everyone said it would end soon, but Frank mentioned that it would never really end, hinting that they should imagine what the world would be like if the military controlled the power of invisibility. But after they left, a chair moved on its own. That night, it was Linda's turn in the lab. She was working on the floor when Sebastian began to annoy her by moving her soda, then started massaging her and asked if she wanted to make love to an invisible man. She remarked that it would be just like the old days because it was as though he was never really there, so she decided to reject him. The next day, Matt and Carter were preparing to administer the serum to Sebastian, while Linda sprayed his arm so they could see his veins. They were ready to bring Sebastian back to his normal state. The serum entered his body and his organs and bones began to become visible, but it seemed he had a seizure and his vital signs became unstable. His lungs failed and they had to connect him to a ventilator. They tried to stabilize him, but he managed to push Carter with immense force and also hit Matt. It seemed like his body was becoming visible, but the process reversed and then he lost consciousness. They were able to insert the breathing tube. Matt performed chest compressions, and when he turned invisible again, they managed to bring him back to a stable condition. Sebastian later woke up with Linda by his side, who told him he had almost died, but he insisted on not telling the committee anything, saying he would remain in this state for a while. They made him a special mask so they could monitor him. Now they needed to figure out what went wrong. Linda and Matt were working from home, unable to solve the reverse serum formula. After 10 days, Sebastian began to feel physically and mentally ill due to all the tests conducted on him. He vomited and even his vomit was invisible. He argued with Matt about it, but Linda tried to calm him down. That night, Sebastian decided to leave. He told Carter, but Carter couldn't allow him to leave as per the rules. Sebastian said they were his rules and he could change them, then left, saying he would be back in a few hours. Carter called Linda to inform her, while Sebastian evaded the gate guard, who no longer saw his face clearly and thus let him pass. As he passed by a group of children, they noticed and said something was strange, but he scared them off. Linda and Matt left their apartment to return to the lab, and Linda told him that Sebastian could be anywhere. Sebastian entered his apartment to grab some items to take back to the lab, but he saw his neighbor undressing again. Moments later, her doorbell rang. She opened the door but found no one there. Then the bell rang again, and she decided to step into the hallway, but didn't see anything either, so she returned to her apartment. She began brushing her hair, but the mirror started to move, and Sebastian assaulted her. Meanwhile, Linda was searching for him in his apartment and found the door open, so she entered and saw that the mask he was wearing had been left behind. They all returned to the lab to prepare to find him. Suddenly, Sebastian returned and told them he had just gone to his apartment to get some things. Linda confronted him with questions, but he kept insisting that he had just gone to pick up things from his apartment. Sebastian said he was still the leader of the project and could make any decision he wanted. Linda threatened him, saying that if he went out again, she would report him to the committee. After everyone left, Sarah told Linda that the committee actually knew nothing about the human trials, then left angrily. Later, Linda and Matt wondered if Sebastian's invisibility had started to affect his mind. The next day, Carter was conducting tests on Sebastian, and they talked about what had happened the previous night. Carter mentioned what he might do to people if he were invisible. Sebastian merely said he saw a girl, and Carter just laughed. That night, Linda was sleeping in her apartment, and it seemed like something invisible was trying to remove her clothes, but it was just a dream. Her phone rang, waking her up. Matt told her he thought he had found the solution. Afterward, they headed to the lab to run a simulation, but they only reached 95% stability before the process began to break down. Sebastian became angry and left, telling Matt that reaching 95% was a failure. Linda followed him, confronting him about his treatment of Matt, saying that he was only trying to help, but Sebastian's arrogance made him insult both Matt and Linda again. Linda told him he should be working to save his life. He grabbed her arms, saying that his life no longer existed because he was now a prisoner. Linda left angry. Later, she talked to Frank and asked him to go down to the lab. He gathered some tools and modified the camera to make it look like he was in bed. Then he went to Linda's apartment to spy on her. Matt entered her apartment, which enraged Sebastian, causing him to break a window, though he couldn't see what was happening. Linda called the lab to confirm whether Sebastian was there, and Frank saw him on the camera, so he said that Sebastian was there and couldn't have broken the window. After that, Sebastian remained furious because of Linda. The dog kept barking incessantly, which fueled his anger further, so he decided to end the dog's life in a brutal way, as shown through the thermal cameras. Poor dog. The next day, Sarah found the dog and immediately confronted Sebastian about it, but he denied doing anything to the dog. They reviewed the camera footage again, and on the screen it looked like he was asleep the entire night. Later, Linda was in her room believing Sebastian was there. She told him it wasn't funny and threw a blanket over the spot where she thought he was standing. For a moment, it seemed like she saw something. Frightened, she ran out of her apartment and headed to the lab. Matt confirmed he was asleep, but Linda checked his room and discovered he had left and placed a recording on the camera to loop. Linda called everyone to warn them that Sebastian was out. Janice asked if they should go after him, but Linda thought they should go to the committee. Matt said that he had been sneaking out every night and they had no idea what he was doing. Linda told everyone that they would be held responsible before the committee. However, Sebastian was there, listening to everything. After Matt and Linda left, Matt said he would inform the team the next day. Everyone was at Kramer's house, and Sebastian was spying on them from outside. Kramer said he would contact the necessary authorities while he asked Linda and Matt to leave through the door and told them they should pack their belongings. Kramer was about to make a call, but his phone wasn't working. He noticed the door move, so he went out to the pool. Sebastian appeared in the smoke of his pipe and pushed him into the pool, drowning him as his wife witnessed what was happening. Sebastian left the pool before the wife could do anything. The next day, Linda returned to the lab, and Sebastian startled her by saying it would be a busy day. Matt told her that Sebastian had returned at 3 in the morning and had been wandering around the lab. They hadn't received any call from Kramer, so Linda called his wife, who told her that he had drowned in the pool the previous night. Linda tried to contact one of the generals, but the call was disconnected. They decided to leave, and when they got into the elevator, it wouldn't accept their passwords. They returned to inform the others what had happened. Frank checks the security system while Matt says it might take a few days for someone to come and rescue them. Frank mentions that the system is fine, but the only person who has the password to leave is Sebastian. Everyone wears their goggles and leaves, but Janice forgets hers in her rush, which allows Sebastian to approach and end her life. And the rest search for him in his room, but he isn't there. Sebastian tells Linda that he cannot allow them to turn him in and admits that he killed Kramer. Linda realizes that Janice is missing, so they run to find her, but it's too late. They discover her body in a cabinet. Carter believes that Sebastian has lost his mind, while Matt thinks that Sebastian has planned everything and wants to eliminate them all so no one can expose his secret. Sarah yells at Linda and slaps her, accusing her of being able to stop the experiment at any moment, with Frank agreeing. Carter asks what they will do now, and the team starts preparing to confront Sebastian. They turn on the motion detectors and manage to see him on the screen. Matt and Carter go out to search for him while the others monitor the motion sensors. The two split up in their attempt to find Sebastian. Carter sees movement and shoots at him, but Sebastian tricks them. It turns out it was just hot air. Sebastian grabs Carter by the neck. Matt tries to shoot him several times but fails, and Carter ends up falling, hitting his head. Linda tells Matt that Sebastian is still there, and Matt shoots again, breaking a pipe that releases a large amount of hot air. Sebastian manages to push Matt, who tries to find him using the goggles, but the hot air makes it impossible for him to see. Linda comes out to help Matt and asks Frank to go help Carter. Matt tries a different approach to see Sebastian, and they argue about Linda. Finally, Matt manages to see him after spraying him with foam from a fire extinguisher, but Sebastian strikes him several times. Linda manages to pull Matt out of there. Meanwhile, Sarah finds Carter and leaves Frank to apply pressure on his wound. Sarah takes blood bags from the lab to perform a transfusion on Carter, and when she hears Sebastian enter, she spills the blood on the ground to see him, but she waits a bit. When he doesn't appear, she takes the last bag and heads toward another door. However, Sebastian appears and speaks to her. She opens the bag and spills the blood on him, but he still has the upper hand and shoots her with a tranquilizer gun, then breaks her neck. At the same time, Linda and Matt return to discover that Sarah did not survive. Linda and Matt tell Frank that Carter has died. They return to the lab to find Sarah dead. Sebastian kills Frank by stabbing him with a metal pipe in the chest and manages to lock Linda and Matt in the cooler. Linda uses duct tape to stop the bleeding of Matt, who is severely injured, while Sebastian prepares for his escape. Matt loses consciousness, and Linda tries to find a way out of the cooler. She comes up with an idea to escape while Sebastian prepares a chemical compound to blow up the lab. Linda uses a defibrillator to create a magnet and unlocks the door, then pulls Matt out and lights a fire to warm him up. Before leaving, Linda grabs a gas canister. At the same time, Sebastian sets a bomb with a 5-minute countdown. He enters the elevator, but Linda arrives just in time and manages to ignite a fire. Before the doors close, Sebastian tries to take off his clothes, but it seems like the clothes are starting to merge with his skin. He manages to escape by removing part of his clothing and activates the sprinklers to see more clearly. He quietly approaches Linda and strikes her. He tries to strangle her, but Matt appears and knocks him unconscious. However, Sebastian is still alive and attacks them again, but Matt pushes him, causing him to fall and get electrocuted. Afterward, his body becomes visible. Honestly, I think the electricity has something to do with the reversal, since the gorilla also became visible again when they used the defibrillator. Maybe the missing component was electricity. They decide to leave Sebastian there, but Linda hears an explosion and realizes there is a bomb, but it's too late, and they only have time to escape. The elevator was their only way out, but it was engulfed in flames, and they didn't have the password. They then remembered there was a staircase. I'm not sure why they didn't think of that earlier when they were stuck. But anyway, the bomb went off. They began to climb the stairs as the lab exploded, causing the elevator to rise automatically. They were able to get away and avoid it, but then the elevator started descending again. They managed to escape it purely by luck. It seemed like everything was over, but suddenly Sebastian appeared, grabbing Linda's leg. She and Matt struggled with him, and Linda managed to throw Sebastian into the falling elevator, but he managed to hold on. Matt was injured, and Linda tricked Sebastian into throwing himself into the fire while she held onto a cable. Both Matt and Linda managed to safely escape the lab.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.